Right, welcome to page 3 of lesson 1.3 on fractions, decimals, and percents. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at a couple of different forms. Like we're going to take a look at a fraction and then a decimal and a percent, and we're going to convert them to the other forms. So we're starting this one with the fraction 1/2. So what is the same value as the decimal form and as a percent? And how can we convert those forms? Well, a 1/2 is the same thing as a 0.5, which is the same thing as a 50%. Those are all equivalent. Now let's show how we get that. If we are starting with the 1/2, the way to convert the 1/2 to a decimal is through long division. Now, we have calculators. We can just do 1 divided by 2, and then that gives us our 0.5. So we can do that pretty simply. For a fraction, when you divide by a fraction, I want to the way I'm going to say this helps us understand how to set up the long division. This is 1 divided by 2. 1 divided by 2. Since you're dividing by 2, 2 goes by the box, not in the box. Right? So 1 divided by 2, 2 goes by the box. 1 goes on the inside. Now, 2 doesn't go into 1. It's not going to work. So let's put a decimal there. And that means we're going to bring that decimal straight up. And since 2 doesn't go into 1, we're going to have to add a 0, and now we have a 10. Now, if I do 2 divided into 10, how many times will 2 go into 10? Or in other words, how many 2's does it take to make a 10? It takes 5 2's. And then 5 times 2 is 10. That gives me a 0, and I'm done, and there's your 0.5. Now, to change this to a percent, I don't have a great way to go from this form to this form right away. Well, I guess I kind of do. I think the easier way to do it is then to take your decimal answer, which is 0.5, and we'll bring it over here, and we'll change this decimal value to percent. And it's pretty simple. You multiply by 100. So you take the 50, remember it's per 100, you take the 0.50 and you multiply it by 100, and that gives you a 50%. And I can verify that on a calculator. There's your 0.5 times 100. It gives you a 50%. So that is one way to do it. I'm going to show you another way to do it. I think this is harder. It takes more work. But it is a valid method, and it is going to be something we're going to look at later on in the chapter. So I think seeing it for the first time now isn't going to be a bad thing. This is something called a proportion. So what it is, it's 2 equal fractions. Now, for the proportion, this side's going to be the percent side. So this is going to be my 100. And over here, I'm going to put an X to represent the percent amount. So this is what I'm trying to find out, is what percent. And then I'm going to put the fraction that we started with, 1/2. So there is a way to go from the fraction to the percent. So 1 over 2 is going to be the same as how much out of 100, because this is per 100. This X represents whatever that percentage is going to be. And what we want to do is we want to get this X by itself. Now, right now we have X divided by 100. To undo this division of 100, we're going to multiply by 100 right here. Notice where I put this 100. I put it even with the top. But I also have to do it on this side as well. So I'm going to put 100 even with the top here. These are going to cancel. This is why I did this. I multiplied by 100 to cancel the division of 100. And I wind up with X. This 100 gets multiplied just to the top. When you multiply fractions, you don't multiply diagonally at all. You multiply to the top. So 1 times 100 is 100, and 100 divided by 2 is 50. And as we said, 50% is the percent. So this does work. I don't recommend this, but I wanted to show you that there is a way to go straight from the fraction to the percent, but it's probably easier to go fraction, change it to a decimal, and then multiply that to 100 to make it into a percent. All right, so that's the first one where we convert a fraction to a decimal and percent. Now let's take a look at a decimal value. Now if we consider what we did back in the previous page, I'm going to flip this back. Remember when we said that there were two decimals? That means it was these two numbers out of 100. And so when you have a number that's two decimal places, it actually becomes really easy to convert it to a percent and to a fraction. So 0.25 is 25 out of 100. And since it's 25 per 100, it's 25%. So those convert really quickly and easily. Now I do want to mention this fraction needs to be reduced down. So we should be reducing it to its simplest form. Anytime you use a fraction, you should reduce it down to its simplest form. We'll talk about reducing here in a second. I made a mistake here. Hopefully I have this fixed. I don't know that I've printed these out yet. Oh, dang, I think I did. If they're not fixed, you're going to have to fix them now. This is a decimal, and I want to change it to a fraction and a percent. I did a little copy-paste where I copied this, and then I just pasted it here, and I forgot to change with the headings there. I'll have to fix that. All right, so for this one, we're going to start with the 0.025, and then to make that into a fraction, we easily said that, well, that's since it's two decimal places, that's out of 100. Now, how do we reduce the fraction? Now, your calculators will reduce the fraction for you. And unfortunately, I didn't bring one of the calculators from school, but one of the calculators will have a key that has a box over it. It looks like this, or it says like N over D. And if you hit that key, you can put the 25 in the top and the 100 in the bottom and just hit enter. And it'll reduce the fraction for you, which is fantastic. But we don't have that option right now, and we're going to do this by hand. So what you need to do is find what number will divide into both the top and the bottom. Now the number that jumps out to me really quickly is a 5. So I'm going to divide the top by 5 and the bottom by 5. So that's what I'm showing here, dividing top and bottom by 5. 25 divided by 5 is 5. 100 divided by 5 is 20. So now I have 5 over 20. I can still make it smaller. I can still simplify it more. So I can divide the top and bottom by 5 again. And so 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 20 divided by 5 is 4. 1/4 is the simplest form of the fraction. So having 25 out of 100 is the same thing as having 1 out over 4. These are the same amount. This just has more total pieces, but it's still the same overall amount of the whole. And so this would be its simplified form. We'll talk a little bit more about how these fractions are equal to each other in the next lesson. We're going to start doing some operations with it, and we'll be looking at more equivalent fractions, and we'll do some pictures. This is a hard one to draw, but on the next lesson we'll be doing some that are a little easier to represent with pictures, and I think that's a better time to describe how this amount is the exact same as this amount, even though the numbers look very different. And then for the percent, and I kind of did this here, if you convert to this fraction of 25 out of 100, this is already 25 per 100, or 25%, so you can go straight to it. The other way to do it is to take the decimal value and multiply it by 100. And that will also change it to 25, which would give you 25%. So either of those methods would work. All right, that is the end of page 3. Go ahead and continue on to page 4.